The air inside the Kethari Valley was always still, not calm, still, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Elias Morin noticed it the moment he stepped past the carved stone markers and into the living space of the tribe. Even the wind seemed careful here, sliding along the tall crystal-like trees instead of rushing through them. Elias adjusted the small pack on his shoulder and slowed his steps. He had been trained for this. Years of first contact protocol, cultural sensitivity drills, and long briefings about the Kethari. Still, training did not prepare him for the feeling that the ground itself was watching. The Kethari were already gathered. Dozens of them stood in smooth lines, their tall, slender forms wrapped in pale woven layers that shifted color with the light. Their faces were narrow, their eyes large and dark, reflecting more than they revealed. No one spoke. No one moved. Elias stopped at the boundary line etched into the stone floor. He did not cross it. He had been told not to. "I am Elias Morin," he said softly, speaking in Galactic Standard, letting the translation node at his collar do its work. "Human envoy, observer only. I come in peace as agreed." The words echoed more than they should have. One Kethari stepped forward, older than the rest, Elias guessed. The lines along the side of its face were deeper, the fabric around its body darker and heavier. This was an elder. "You may remain," the elder said. The voice was calm, flat, and strangely distant. "You may see, you may hear, you may not interfere." Elias nodded. "I understand." The elder studied him for a long moment, then added, "Understanding is not required, obedience is." That was the first warning. Elias was guided to a smooth stone platform near the edge of the gathering space. It was clearly marked for outsiders. He sat where indicated, hands visible, posture relaxed. He made himself small. Humans were good at that when needed. The ceremony began without announcement. Several Kethari stepped into the center and began a slow, precise movement. It was not a dance exactly. Each step, each turn, seemed measured against something unseen. Their movements matched the faint glow that pulsed through the crystal trees around them, as if the environment itself was part of the ritual. Elias watched carefully. He recorded nothing. The Kethari allowed observation, not preservation. Beside him stood a young Kethari, much younger than the others. She wore the lighter layers of a learner, not the heavy cloth of an elder. She was the assigned translator, there to clarify meaning if absolutely necessary. She had not spoken since Elias arrived. As the ritual continued, Elias noticed something strange. The movements were repeated perfectly but never changed. No variation, no improvisation. Even the pauses were exact. It was beautiful and unsettling. He leaned slightly toward the translator, careful to keep his voice low. "How old is this ceremony?" he asked. She hesitated. Her eyes flicked toward the elders, then back to the ritual. "It has always been," she said. Elias frowned slightly. "Always is a long time." She did not answer. The ceremony ended as quietly as it began. The Kethari returned to their places, their attention turning fully to Elias for the first time. He felt dozens of eyes settle on him, heavy and searching. The elder stepped forward again. "You have observed," it said. "You may now speak, briefly." Elias stood. He chose his words with care. "Thank you for allowing me to witness your tradition. Humans believe that understanding begins with listening. I am honored to listen." A ripple passed through the group. Not movement, reaction. The elder tilted its head. "Belief is irrelevant, tradition is sufficient." Elias nodded again. "Of course." Silence stretched. Then, without planning to, Elias added, "May I ask why this tradition exists?" The reaction was immediate. The young translator inhaled sharply. Her body stiffened as if struck by cold. The elders did not speak, but their attention sharpened, the air growing heavier. The translator leaned toward Elias, her voice barely more than breath. "That is forbidden," she whispered. Elias turned to her slowly. His expression remained calm, but his mind was racing. "Why?" he asked just as softly. Her eyes widened. Fear flashed across her face, raw and unfiltered. "Do not ask," she said. "Do not think it." Elias straightened and addressed the elder. "I apologize if my question crossed a boundary. It was not my intent to disrupt." The elder studied him longer this time. "Questions of origin are unnecessary," it said. "They invite disorder." Elias absorbed that. "Humans ask them often," he said carefully. "Not to cause disorder, to understand how to continue." A murmur rippled through the group now, subtle but undeniable. The elder raised one hand and silence returned. "You will remain silent on this matter," the elder said. "If you cannot, you will leave." "I can remain silent," Elias replied, and he meant it. But he also understood something important had just happened. Later, as the gathering dispersed and the Cathari returned to their dwellings, Elias remained on his platform. The translator lingered nearby, clearly uncertain whether she was allowed to leave. "You don't have to stay," Elias said gently. She hesitated. "I am assigned." He nodded. "Then may I ask you something safer?" Her posture relaxed slightly. "You may ask, I may not answer." "That's fair," Elias said. "When you said my question was forbidden, was it the asking that was forbidden, or the answer?" Her eyes flicked up to his, then away. "Both," she said. Then, after a pause, "but mostly the answer." Elias felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air. "Do you know the answer?" She swallowed. "No. Does anyone?" She was quiet for a long time. The crystal trees pulsed softly around them. Finally, she said, "The elders say the answer ended the world once." Elias sat back slightly. "Ended it how?" She shook her head. "That is forbidden too." He smiled faintly, not mocking but gentle. "In human history," he said, "we have many forbidden things. Some were dangerous, some were just frightening." She studied him now, curiosity fighting fear. "And what happened when you broke them?" Elias considered that. "Sometimes we failed, sometimes badly, but sometimes we learned." The translator said nothing, but her fingers tightened around the edge of her robe. As the light in the valley dimmed, signaling the end of the cycle, Elias was escorted to his assigned shelter. It was simple, clean, and empty. As the entrance sealed behind him, he finally allowed himself to breathe freely. The Cathari were not hostile. They were not cruel. They were afraid, not of humans, not of outsiders. They were afraid of understanding something they had buried so deeply that even asking about it felt like standing at the edge of an abyss. Elias sat on the smooth floor and looked at his hands. Human hands. Hands that built, broke, repaired, and tried again. He thought of the whisper, "That is forbidden." And for the first time since arriving, Elias Morin was certain of one thing. Whatever the Cathari feared was not a weapon or a monster or a disaster. It was a thought. And humans were very good at those. The Cathari cycle began without sound. Elias noticed it when the soft glow of the crystal trees shifted from pale blue to a gentle amber. The light change moved across the valley like a quiet signal, and almost at once the Cathari emerged from their dwellings. There were no alarms, no spoken calls. Everyone simply knew when to begin. Elias watched from the edge of the common path, careful to stand where he had been instructed. The tribe flowed past him in smooth, practiced lines. No one rushed. No one lagged behind. Each Cathari walked at the same pace, stopped at the same points, turned at the same angles. It was order taken to its extreme. The young translator appeared beside him, her steps lighter than the others but just as measured. She did not look at him at first. "You are allowed to observe today," she said quietly, "but you may not ask questions." Elias smiled slightly. "I will behave." She glanced at him, clearly unsure whether he was joking. Humans were still difficult to read for her. They walked together along the outer path. Elias noticed that even the children followed the same rules as the adults. When a small Cathari paused too long to watch the light patterns in the trees, an older one gently guided them forward without a word. No correction, no explanation, just alignment. "What happens if someone does not follow?" Elias asked before he could stop himself. The translator froze mid-step. Elias sighed softly. That was a question, I'm sorry. She studied the path ahead, her voice low. Deviation is corrected. How? She swallowed. By reminder. Elias waited. And if reminder fails, her fingers curled into her sleeve. It does not fail. That answer told him more than any explanation could. They reached a wide open space where groups of Kethari stood facing stone panels etched with symbols. Elias recognized them from earlier observation. These were records, but not history. They were instructions. The tribe gathered, eyes forward, bodies still. A single elder stepped forward and placed a hand against the stone. The symbols glowed faintly. Elias leaned toward the translator. What is being recorded? She hesitated, then answered carefully. Confirmation. Of what? That the cycle was completed correctly. Elias frowned. And if it was, she did not answer. Instead, she surprised him by asking a question of her own. Do humans record correctness? Elias considered that. Sometimes, he said. But we also record mistakes. Her eyes widened slightly. Why? So we can avoid them later. She looked genuinely confused. If a mistake is recorded, others might repeat it. Yes, Elias agreed. But they might also improve on it. That word made her flinch. Improve, she repeated softly, as if tasting it. It's not always good, Elias added quickly, but it's always human. The ceremony ended and the Kethari dispersed again. This time, instead of returning to their dwellings, many moved toward work areas, tending crystal growths, adjusting water channels, inspecting structures that looked centuries old. Everything was maintained. Nothing was changed. Elias noticed the translator lingering again. You don't have to stay, he said gently. She shook her head. I want to. That simple statement felt heavier than it should have. They walked toward a quiet ridge overlooking the valley. It was not marked as forbidden, but it was rarely used. Elias had noticed that before. Places not assigned tended to be avoided. Why are you here? She asked suddenly. Elias leaned against the stone railing. Because humans were curious about why your people stopped expanding. She stiffened. We did not stop. We are complete. Complete things don't fear questions, Elias said softly, her breath caught. That is dangerous thinking. Only if you're not allowed to think it. Silence stretched between them. The light from the trees shimmered across her face, reflecting uncertainty. Do you choose to be a translator? Elias asked. Yes, she said immediately, then she paused. No, she corrected herself. I was selected. Elias nodded. What's the difference? She struggled for words. Selection is correct, choice is. She stopped, her expression tightening. Forbidden, Elias offered. She looked at him sharply. You understand that word too easily. Elias smiled sadly. Humans have a long history with forbidden ideas. Did they destroy you? She asked. Almost, he admitted. Several times. Her eyes widened. Then why keep them? Because they also saved us. She turned away, staring out over the valley. Our elders say choice ended the old world. Elias' heart slowed. Choice, he repeated. The word hung between them like a fragile structure. She nodded faintly. It is never spoken, only implied, even thinking it is dangerous. What happened? Elias asked carefully. She shook her head. I do not know, no one does, only that before the silence there were many paths, and the many paths led to ruin. The silence, Elias echoed. The time after, she said, when the rules were made complete. Elias felt a chill. Rules don't appear without someone writing them. That is also forbidden, she whispered. He raised his hand slightly. I'm not asking you to break your laws. She laughed softly without humor. You already did. Elias blinked. I did. You asked why. He had no response to that. Later in his shelter, Elias reviewed his notes, not recordings but impressions. He had learned more by what the Kethari avoided than by what they showed. Their fear was not chaos, it was possibility. The translator's words echoed in his mind. Many paths. Humans thrived on many paths. The Kethari had buried them. The next cycle, the translator approached Elias first. "I should not speak to you," she said. "But you will?" Elias asked. She nodded. "Because I cannot stop thinking." He felt a quiet triumph and a deep concern. They walked together again, this time through a work area. Elias noticed something new. A cracked water channel had been repaired in the exact same flawed way that caused the crack before. "Why not adjust the angle?" he asked without thinking. She reacted instantly. "Do not say that." Elias froze. "I'm sorry." Her voice trembled. "That is how it begins." "How what begins?" She looked around, ensuring they were alone. "Deviation, improvement, choice." Elias lowered his voice. "But the crack will return." "Yes," she said, "and we will repair it again." "That wastes effort." She met his eyes. "Effort is acceptable, disorder is not." Elias realized then that the Cathari did not fear inefficiency. They feared uncertainty. "Do you ever wonder," he asked gently, "what would happen if the rule was wrong?" She stared at the channel, then whispered, "Every cycle." The admission shook her more than any argument could have. Before she could say more, an elder appeared at the edge of the work area. Its gaze locked onto them instantly. "You are exceeding your assignment," the elder said to the translator. She bowed her head. "Yes, elder." The elder turned to Elias. "Your presence creates disturbance." "I apologize," Elias said calmly. "That was not my intent." "Intent is irrelevant," the elder replied. "Effect matters." Elias nodded. Then perhaps the effect was already there. The elder studied him for a long moment. "Humans believe themselves subtle." "We believe ourselves unfinished," Elias said. The elder's eyes narrowed. "That belief is dangerous." "So is believing you're done," Elias replied. The silence that followed felt heavier than any threat. That night the translator did not come to see him. Elias lay awake, staring at the dim glow of the shelter walls, wondering if he had pushed too far. Yet somewhere in the valley, a young Cathari lay awake too, her mind filled with a single forbidden thought. What if the rule beneath the rule was wrong? And what if understanding it did not end the world, but began it again? The change did not announce itself. It arrived quietly, hiding inside routine, slipping through habits that had not shifted in generations. Elias noticed it not because something obvious happened, but because something small did not happen the way it usually did. A Cathari worker paused. It was only for a moment, barely a breath longer than normal. But in a place where timing was exact, where every movement matched an invisible pattern, the pause stood out like a crack in smooth stone. Elias was standing near the outer maintenance path, observing as always. He did not react. He did not look directly at the worker. He simply noted it and let the moment pass. The worker resumed movement. The cycle continued, but the pause stayed with Elias. Later that cycle, the translator returned. She approached him slowly, her posture controlled, her expression carefully neutral. If someone else watched her, they would see nothing unusual. Elias, however, noticed the tension in her shoulders and the way her hands remained clenched inside her sleeves. "You were not present last cycle," Elias said gently. "I was reassigned," she replied. "That doesn't usually happen," he said. "No," she agreed. "It does not." They walked together along the familiar path, their steps aligned with the flow of the tribe. For a long time neither of them spoke. Then she said, "An elder asked me what you meant." Elias kept his eyes forward. "About what? Being unfinished?" He exhaled slowly. "And what did you say?" "I said humans believe growth never ends." "That's accurate." She asked why. Elias almost smiled. "Almost." "And?" he prompted. "I said because humans change," the translator continued, "even when they are afraid." Elias glanced at her. "That was brave." She shook her head slightly. "It was careless." "Sometimes those are the same thing," he said. They reached a quiet junction where the path split toward different work zones. No one else was nearby. "I think about the crack," she said suddenly. Elias stopped walking. "The water channel?" "Yes," she said. "I see it before it forms. I know where it will fail." And you fix it the same way every time, Elias said. Yes. Why? He asked softly now. Because the rule says the method is correct. And if the rule is wrong, her breath caught. She did not answer. Elias did not push. He had learned that silence could be more powerful than questions. Instead, he said, humans use a simple idea when something fails. She looked at him cautiously. What idea? We ask what changed, he said. Then we change one thing and watch what happens. That is experimentation, she said, the word unfamiliar and heavy. Yes. That is forbidden, she whispered automatically. Elias nodded. So is understanding, apparently. She almost laughed, then stopped herself, glancing around. Why do you keep saying these things? She asked. You know the risk. Elias considered his answer. Because I think your people already know them, you just don't say them out loud. Her eyes darkened. Saying them makes them real. So does thinking them, Elias replied. That cycle, Elias was summoned. The elder council gathered in a stone chamber deep within the valley. Elias had not been allowed there before. The walls were smooth, etched with symbols older than anything he had seen so far. The air felt heavier, as if memory itself lingered there. The elders stood in a half circle. No one invited Elias to sit. You are causing deviation, one elder said. Elias inclined his head. That was never my intent. Intent does not matter, another elder replied. Pattern matters. Elias met their gaze calmly. Patterns that cannot change break. A ripple of tension passed through the council. You speak in dangers, the first elder said. You introduce thoughts without structure. I introduce questions, Elias replied. The structure comes from those who answer them. You do not belong here, an elder said sharply. No, Elias agreed. But the questions do. Silence followed. Finally, the eldest among them spoke. Why does your species survive chaos? Elias answered honestly. Because we expect it. The elders absorbed this. You expect failure, one said. Yes, that is weakness. It's preparation, Elias corrected. The meeting ended without resolution. Elias was escorted out but not expelled. That alone was a decision. The next cycles were different. Elias noticed small changes. A worker adjusted their grip on a tool. A pair of Kethari exchanged a look that lingered a second too long. A child asked a question and was not immediately redirected. Nothing dramatic happened. No rules were broken openly, but thought was moving. The translator avoided Elias for several cycles after the council meeting. When she finally approached him again, her voice was unsteady. They are watching me, she said. I'm sorry, Elias replied quietly. No, she said. I asked them to, he frowned. Why? Because I could not stop thinking, she said, and I wanted to know if thinking itself was the crime. And, Elias asked. They did not punish me, she said. They told me to stop. And did you? She shook her head. That night she showed Elias something hidden. They stood inside a storage chamber rarely used, its walls dim and unmarked. From beneath a loose stone panel, she removed a thin shard of crystal etched with symbols unlike any Elias had seen. This is old, she said. Older than the silence. What is it? Elias asked. I don't know, she said. No one is allowed to know, but it does not give instructions. Elias studied it carefully. It looks like a record. Yes, she said, but not of correctness, of attempts. Elias felt his heart race. Attempts at what? She met his eyes. Different ways. The forbidden made physical. They hid it, Elias said softly. Yes, she replied, because it shows variation. And variation leads to choice, she whispered. They stood in silence, the weight of generations pressing down on them. What if, Elias said slowly, your ancestors didn't fail because they chose, but because they stopped choosing too soon? Her breath shook. That thought alone could end us. Or save you, Elias said. The next cycle, the crack in the water channel did not return. Elias noticed immediately. So did others. The angle had been changed, slightly, almost invisibly. The repair held. No announcement was made, no credit claimed, but the elders noticed. The council gathered again, this time without summoning Elias. He watched from a distance as tension spread through the tribe, not fear this time, but uncertainty. Later, the translator found him. "They know," she said. "They don't know who, but they know the rule was broken." And, Elias asked. "They are afraid," she said, "because nothing bad happened." Elias nodded. "That's how it begins." "What if they decide the rule must be enforced harder?" she asked. "Then the question will still exist," Elias replied. "And now they know it works." She looked at him with a mix of awe and fear. "You didn't give us answers." "No," Elias said. "I gave you permission to ask." That cycle, for the first time in generations, the Cathari argued, not loudly, not openly, but in whispers, in pauses, in changed methods that solved problems faster. The forbidden idea no longer needed words. It was alive, and the tribe, once perfectly still, had begun, very carefully, to move. The valley felt louder, even though no one raised their voice. Elias noticed it during the next cycle. The crystal trees still glowed on time. The paths were still followed. The work still happened. But beneath it all, there was a tension that had not existed before. It was like listening to a song played correctly, but knowing one note had been changed. The Cathari felt it too. They paused more often now. Not long enough to be obvious, but long enough to notice if you knew what to look for. Their eyes lingered on completed work, not with pride or relief, but with quiet evaluation. The forbidden thought had not caused chaos, it had caused awareness. Elias remained careful. He did not suggest. He did not teach. He observed and listened. That alone was enough. The translator approached him near the end of the cycle. Her steps were controlled, but her breathing was faster than usual. "The elders have called for a full gathering," she said. "That doesn't happen often," Elias replied. "It only happens when the pattern is threatened," she said. Elias nodded. "Am I invited?" She hesitated. "You are allowed to stand at the edge." That was not permission, it was tolerance. The gathering space filled slowly. Every member of the tribe was present, from the smallest children to the oldest elders. The crystal trees brightened, responding to the number of bodies, the heat, the quiet tension. The elders stood at the center. One stepped forward, the same one who had first warned Elias. "There has been deviation," the elder said. "It was not announced, it was not recorded." A murmur passed through the crowd. "Deviation corrected an inefficiency," another elder added. "The result was stable." That murmur changed tone, not fear, curiosity. "This creates imbalance," the first elder continued. "The rule was broken and no harm followed." Silence fell. Elias felt the weight of that sentence. No harm followed. It was the most dangerous outcome possible. The translator stood among her people, her hands trembling slightly. Elias watched her carefully. She was afraid, but she was not silent. "The rule exists to protect us," an elder said. "Yes," she said suddenly before she could stop herself. Every head turned. Elias' breath caught, but he did not move. The elder looked at her. "Speak," she swallowed. "The rule exists because our ancestors feared destruction." "That fear was justified," the elder replied. "Was it?" she asked. A sharp intake of breath spread through the crowd. The elder's eyes narrowed. "That question is forbidden," she nodded. "So is understanding, and yet we understand that the repair held." Silence pressed down like weight. Elias realized then that it was no longer about him. The question had moved beyond the human. "The rule preserved us," the elder said. "Yes," she agreed, "but it also stopped us." That word, "stopped," rippled through the gathering. "We are complete," another elder said firmly. The translator lifted her head. "If we were complete, we would not fear being wrong." The gathering erupted, not in noise but in movement. Heads turned. Bodies shifted. The perfect stillness of Cathari society fractured into something alive. The elders raised their hands, restoring order. "You speak dangerous thoughts," the first elder said. "Thoughts that once ended our world." "Or thoughts that built it," she replied quietly. Elias felt something deep and heavy settle in his chest, pride mixed with fear. The elders conferred in low tones. The tribe waited. Finally, the eldest elder stepped forward. "We will test," it said. The word struck the valley like thunder. "To test," the elder continued, "is to invite uncertainty." "Yes," the translator said, "but uncertainty already exists." The elder studied her. "And if the test fails," she answered honestly, "then we will know why." That answer shook more than any argument. The elders turned slowly toward Elias. "You," the eldest said, "you live this way." Elias did not hesitate. "Yes. And you survive." "We do," Elias said, "not because we are always right, but because we learn when we are wrong." The elder considered this. "Your species risks much." "Yes," Elias agreed, "but we gain adaptability." The words settled into the air. The test was simple. A water channel, similar to the one repaired before, would be rebuilt using a slightly altered method. The change would be recorded, observed. If instability followed, the method would be rejected. If not, no one said the rest. The work began the next cycle. The translator stood beside Elias as the tribe watched. Her hands shook, but she did not look away. The channel was completed. The water flowed, the structure held, the cycle passed. Then another. Still it held. Whispers spread, not of fear, but of possibility. The elders did not celebrate. They did not condemn. They recorded. For the first time in generations, they recorded something new. That night the translator sat with Elias near the ridge. "They are afraid," she said softly. "They should be," Elias replied. "Change is frightening." "They are afraid of losing control," she said. Elias nodded. "So were we." "What happened when humans realized they were not in control?" she asked. "We argued," Elias said with a small smile. "A lot." She laughed quietly, the sound unfamiliar but real. "And then?" she asked. "Then we built systems that allowed disagreement without collapse," he said. "Slowly, badly, but we tried." She looked out over the valley. "We have no system for disagreement." "Then you're building one now," Elias said. The next gathering was different. This time the elders spoke openly of the past. Not details, but admissions. "Our ancestors chose many paths," the eldest elder said. "Those paths conflicted." The word conflict sent a shiver through the tribe. "We ended conflict by ending choice," the elder continued. "It preserved us, but it also froze us," another elder added. The translator stood taller now. "We can choose again," she said, carefully. "Choice invites error," an elder warned. "Yes," she replied, "but error teaches." The tribe listened. Elias realized something important then. The Cathari were not rejecting their past, they were reframing it. The final decision came quietly. Choice would not replace tradition. It would exist beside it. A space would be created. Small, controlled. A place where methods could be tested, recorded, and either accepted or rejected. Not freedom, but a beginning. The elders announced it at the end of the cycle. "There will be a place for questions," the eldest said, "and a place for answers." The valley did not erupt in celebration, but the stillness changed. Later, the translator found Elias one last time. "You will leave soon," she said. "Yes," Elias replied. "My role here is nearly done." "You didn't give us rules," she said. "No," he agreed. "You already had those." "You gave us permission," she said. Elias smiled. "You gave it to yourselves." She looked at him, eyes steady now. "The tribe will never be the same." "That doesn't mean it will break," Elias said. She nodded. "It means it will live." As the lights dimmed and the cycle ended, Elias knew the hardest part was still ahead for the Cathari. Not survival, but deciding every cycle whether to remain still or to move. And for the first time in generations, they had a choice. The departure cycle arrived without ceremony. That alone told Elias everything he needed to know. The Cathari did not mark endings the way humans did. No speeches, no gatherings, no symbols carved to remember a moment. To them, significance was dangerous. Meaning led to interpretation. Interpretation led to choice. And choice, until recently, had been forbidden. Elias stood at the edge of the valley as the crystal trees shifted to their departure glow. a soft white light that meant movement outward instead of inward. His small shuttle waited beyond the stone markers, quiet and patient. The translator approached him slowly. She walked differently now, not wrong, not disruptive, just aware. Her steps were still measured but not identical to those around her. She adjusted her pace when the path dipped. She looked up at the trees instead of straight ahead. Small things, important things. "You are leaving," she said. "Yes," Elias replied. "You were not told to stay," she said, not accusing, just stating fact. "No," he agreed, "and I was not told to go," she nodded. "That is how it should be." They stood together in silence. The valley behind them was active in a way Elias had never seen before. Still quiet, still ordered, but alive with thought. Groups gathered around new stone panels, blank ones. Tools lay beside them, unused, waiting. The space for questions had been created just as promised. Carefully, narrowly, but it existed. "The elders met again," she said. "I guessed," Elias replied. "They argued," she added. He smiled faintly. "That's a good sign." "They did not like it," she said honestly. "No one ever does at first." She hesitated, then asked, "Why didn't you stay and guide us?" Elias turned to look at her. "Because if I stayed, it would always be my voice." "And that would be bad?" she asked. "For you," he said. "Yes," she thought about that. "We argued about you," she said. "Some said you were dangerous." "I am," Elias said calmly. She blinked, surprised. "I carry ideas," he continued. "Ideas are always dangerous." "What did the others say?" he asked. "They said you did not force anything," she replied. "You did not command. You did not even answer most questions." Elias nodded. "Good." "They said that was worse," she added. He laughed softly. "Also true." She studied him, then asked the question she had been holding back. "Will your people judge us?" Elias shook his head. "Humans don't judge cultures by how perfect they are. We judge them by whether they can change." "And if we fail?" she asked. "Then you'll do what humans did," he said. "You'll learn why." She looked toward the valley. "Some fear we will return to the old ways." "That's possible," Elias said. "Change isn't a straight path. Some fear we will go too far." "That too," he admitted. She exhaled slowly. "How did humans survive this stage?" Elias thought carefully before answering. "We didn't all survive," he said. "Some societies collapsed. Some ideas hurt us. Some choices cost us dearly." Her eyes widened. "Then why keep choosing?" "Because the alternative," Elias said gently, "was never living at all." The translator absorbed that in silence. Behind them, the eldest elder approached. The others remained at a distance, allowing this moment to happen without interference. "You leave without conclusion," the elder said. "Yes," Elias replied. "That is uncomfortable," the elder admitted. "It should be," Elias said. "Endings that feel comfortable usually mean nothing changed." The elder studied him. "You believe discomfort is useful." "I believe it's honest," Elias replied. The elder inclined its head slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement, not submission. "Our ancestors believed certainty was survival," the elder said. "You suggest uncertainty can also be." Elias met its gaze. "Uncertainty is the space where adaptation happens." The elder was silent for a long moment. "We will proceed slowly," it said at last. "We will test. We will record, we will limit." "That's wise," Elias said, "but we will not silence questions anymore," the elder added. Elias felt something tighten in his chest. "That," he said softly, "is enough." The elder stepped back. The translator turned to Elias one last time. "What will you tell your people about us?" Elias smiled. "That I met a tribe brave enough to question a rule older than fear." She tilted her head. "Brave?" "Yes," Elias said. "Bravery isn't loud, it doesn't charge forward. Sometimes it just asks why and refuses to stop." She looked down at her hands, then up again. "Then we are brave." "Yes," Elias agreed. "You are." Elias stepped past the stone markers and toward his shuttle. The valley did not watch him leave. That too was new. As the shuttle lifted, Elias looked down through the viewport. He saw the valley spread out below him, the crystal trees pulsing softly, the paths still orderly, but no longer rigid. In one corner of the valley, a small group stood around a blank stone panel. One of them raised a tool. They hesitated. Then they carved the first mark. Not an instruction, not a correction, a record of an attempt. The shuttle climbed higher. Elias sent his report to human command. It was shorter than expected. No warnings, no predictions, just one line at the end. They remembered how to begin. Far below, the Cathari faced their future. There were disagreements, mistakes, moments of fear. Some tests failed, some succeeded. Some ideas were set aside, others grew. The space for questions expanded slowly, never overwhelming tradition but never silenced again. Children began asking why repairs worked. Elders began answering with uncertainty instead of authority. And sometimes, when no one was watching, a Cathari would pause at a path and choose a slightly different step. Nothing broke. Years later, when human explorers returned, they found a changed tribe. Still quiet, still careful, but no longer still inside. The elders greeted them without fear. Records were shared, not just of success but of failure, of ideas tested and rejected. One elder said, "We learned that survival is not remaining the same." Another added, "It is remaining able." The human delegation listened in awe, and far away on a quiet human station, Elias Morin read the report and smiled. Humanity had not conquered, had not ruled, had not taught. They had done what they did best. They had reminded another species that evolution was not a past event. It was a choice, and once understood, it could never be fully forbidden again. The galaxy did not shake from war or force. It shifted from a whisper. A single question, once feared, now spoken freely. Why? And the courage to listen to the answer.